The last time I looked at a smartwatch, it was the $70 CMF Watch Pro 2, and it did a lot of stuff pretty dang well. So it makes it hard to justify a $300 smartwatch from the likes of Samsung. But the CMF watch wasn't perfect. There's a lot of weird software quirks, and I'm expecting that Samsung's gonna bring a far more luxurious and a bit of extra experience to the table that CMF just can't provide. And just looking at it already, from the hardware alone, you can tell that this is a more premium product. I think the band, with its nice ribbing for my pleasure, is pretty cool. I also like these blue and orange kind of accents, these little tiny little bits of fabric. I like them a lot. But before I get too enticed by this, let's see what else is in the box. We got a long Samsung box, and inside we have a charger, classic wireless. This is my preferred type of charging. It's a magnetic cradle. You can lay it on the watch in any direction and it will charge, which is nice, which means that you don't have to fumble around to try and get it lined up exactly how you want. On the other side, it is a bunch of, oh, that's the, look, ain't that just the, it's bound. It's a bound book. It's the cutest little book. You could read it to your mice friends. Other than that, that's all you get. Outside of that, you get the Watch 7. The first thing I noticed about it is it's missing a fan favorite feature. That would be the rotating bezel that they got rid of and then they brought back on the 6 Classic. Now we have just a normal screen bezel that is touch sensitive, so you can still kind of do the turn the bezel action. You can still scroll like that, but it doesn't have the same physical satisfaction. Speaking of physical satisfaction, we got nice buttons on the side that are very clicky, as well as actually capacitive, if I'm not mistaken. They can detect if you're just touching like this. On the bottom, we have optical sensors for tracking stuff like your blood oxygen and your heart rate. We have a infrared thermometer right there, a pressure vent for when you're going swimming and stuff like that. And then on the side here, we got our little microphone. It is aluminum, but it has a nice premium finish. The lugs are 20 millimeters apart and have a standard mount, so you don't have to use some sort of weird proprietary connection system. You can swap this out with any watch band that you might already own, and it's gonna be really easy to find replacements. Love to see it. And on the front, we have our display behind sapphire glass, and it looks pretty dang nice, and I'll give you a little sneak peek at it after you get a sneak peek of our sponsor.
Thanks to NZXT for sponsoring this video. Their C1500 is a 1500 watt 80 plus platinum certified power supply. This level of energy efficiency means less power consumption and a cooler and quieter system. It's fully modular, so that's easier and cleaner cable management for you. Plus, its 180 millimeter form factor means more case space and better airflow. Get yours today using the link in the video description.
Off camera, we went through setup, nothing to note. Pretty smooth setup, and this is the watch face you start with. And I don't really like it that much. It's trying to do like a weird, interesting like number thing. Like right now it's 2 p.m. or I guess it's almost 3, but this has a 2 in the background. It's just not very readable to me. And I also just am not a huge fan of the style. Luckily, a lot of these watch faces are like very customizable. You can change the background color. You can change your hands. You can change your hand color. You can change your complications. So if I don't want UV on the side, I can go through a whole host of different ones that they have. I will say that it's not as flexible as say some of the Pixel watch faces where you can literally just put like a link to any app on your device. Here the app has to support the Samsung like home screen. It's not quite as robust. Luckily, just to the side, you can put various different widgets from all sorts of different apps, anything that seems relevant to you, as well as you can navigate this quickly by using that touch-sensitive bezel. Wow. When you're moving through these, you have these dots at the top that indicate your place in the menus, and it does not like line up in a simple way with the bezel. So I find it's a little imprecise, so it doesn't save me much time compared to just swiping like that. Maybe we can fine tune it. I'm not quite sure. They have lots of like tons of watch faces, as well as you can download any watch face you want from the Google Play Store, or maybe if they would prefer, they'd probably want you to go to the Samsung store, but who's gonna use that? This is my preferred watch face. I like it because it has many complications on it. I can do the weather, I can see the forecast, step count, battery. Speaking of battery, this thing, it's pretty good. I used it for a little bit earlier and it got about a day and a half on a full charge without me kind of stressing too much about it. That's including having like health sensors on 24/7. But the always on display was not always on. I saw like a movie and stuff like that and I kept it off. I would expect that if you're like kind of heavily using it and you want tracking on all the time, you can expect a full day to a day and an overnight sleep tracking session. And then you're gonna need to get this on the charger, which is good for me because I like to just keep my charger at work, though it really would be nice if I didn't have to really stretch it through the weekend. Samsung has been making their watchOS for a long time. It's tried and true, it's familiar. You get way too many included Samsung apps that you just don't want, but you do have access to all sorts of apps that you can add yourself. And the nice thing about the Samsung watches is that it integrates really well with all of these apps. Basically every app has support for the Samsung watch in some capacity, which is great because for my main use case for smartwatches, it is the health tracking, and Samsung does quite a good job. Their health tracking app is really robust. There's tons of stuff in it. There's a lot of free exercise videos and stuff like that if that's your speed. It honestly does a lot more in a single app than anything that Google currently offers. I feel like in typical Google fashion, a lot of their stuff is spread out like between their Fit app and then there's their Fitbit app. And the Fitbit app has been getting a bit better lately in terms of kind of bringing all of those tracking features and health features into one single area. But Samsung feels like they offer a lot more without having to pay a subscription, which I appreciate. I also found that heart rate tracking seems accurate, and they actually can measure your body composition with this watch, which, to preface, there's not really a good way to measure your body composition. Even the DEXA scan, which is a current gold standard for measuring body composition, can be very, very inaccurate and varies wildly depending on how much water or food you've eaten. It's hard to do. This claims to be as good as a DEXA scan. I don't know if I believe it, and I don't really have a good way of verifying it, but it should be known that this is gonna be using bioimpedance, which is like, it'll send a small current through the buttons and to the bottom of the watch, and it creates a circuit, and the amount of resistance you get will be roughly what your body composition is. If that sounds kind of crazy and imprecise, that's because it is. I think it's cool that they offer it because even if something is relatively imprecise and is inaccurate, you can still see a general trend, especially if it's the first thing you do when you wake up, but take it with a grain of salt. I will say that using the UI is really snappy and really fluid, and that's probably thanks to their new Exynos W1000 chipset that they have in here. On top of speedy performance, the chip also provides you with LTE and GPS. So you can take this pretty much anywhere in the world, including into water, because it is IP68 water resistant, and the casing is rated for up to 5 atmospheres of pressure. I also think that the way this thing handles notifications and stuff like that is really good. It syncs well with the phone. At least it does a great job of syncing well with a Samsung phone. Samsung can be a bit annoying when it comes to working with devices outside of their ecosystem. For example, you can't use this with an iPhone at all. Even the $70 watch or any Fitbit can be used with an iPhone. It's dumb. It's dumb that they close themselves off from that market. It really just allows people to kind of funnel into the Apple Watch ecosystem, which is like cool. It just seems like a bad idea if you're Samsung to just like let them take it. And although it works with any Android phone, you won't be able to take advantage of the Galaxy AI features on here unless you have a new Samsung phone. How much are you missing from that? Tough to say. Depends on how much those AI features matter to you. I personally don't care, but it's just frustrating that they are locking these features and trying to pull the same annoying anti-consumer behavior that Apple does when it comes to trying to lock you into an ecosystem as opposed to just playing nicely. Samsung, I just want you to be better than Apple. Let Apple users use your watch, because Apple's never gonna let us plebeians use an Apple Watch, right? For me, the 40mm version of this watch is a great size. I think it's a great product. It feels fully fledged. I've run into almost no bugs in my time using it. It runs super smoothly. I think the battery life is adequate, but it's kind of overkill at its $300 price point for someone like me who is mainly looking for those health tracking features, like tracking my heart rate because I have atrial fibrillation, or tracking my workouts when I'm at the gym. Especially, and this is a big thing, is I think for a lot of people, you really only need like that $200, $150 Fitbit to get 90% of what you want. They don't come with the same premium build, and I will say that I think that this looks a little bit cooler and a little bit better than, say, your average Fitbit. It's a little bit more generic, a little bit less sporty, so it doesn't look quite like a fitness tracker, more like an actual watch. I think for most people, at $300, you should really consider something a bit cheaper, unless you really want to go full nomad, no phone, and put a SIM in this thing. I love it. Samsung knows exactly what they're doing when it makes a smartwatch, but I wouldn't put my money towards it. Would you? Let us know in the comments down below. Thanks for watching Short Circuit. If you like this video, why don't you check out my last video on the CMF Watch Pro 2. It's a lot cheaper at $70, and the software might be a little bit wonky, but it might just be the right fit for you.